Hello, Fisher students. Today I'm going to share with you a few books that don't have people as the main characters. So I am here at the Alexandria catalog, and I'm going to be looking for some books where animals are the primary characters. So in my smart search, I could really search for any kind of animal, but I have a couple books in mind. I am going to search for mice. My first smart search is going to bring up books where mice feature in the title, in the subject, anywhere in the whole book record. And you can see I have some fiction, but I also have books about mice as pets. So I'm going to limit this a little bit more. I'm going to go up here to genre, and I'm going to select a genre that I know is going to have mice as characters. And that's going to be fantasy fiction, because we know that once mice enter into conversation, do things that regular mice don't do, we've entered into the realm of fantasy. So instead of 26 books, when I select fantasy as the genre, I'm going to end up with 11 books. And as I scroll through these, you can tell they're all fiction. They all start with FIC. And I'm also noticing that there is a recurring series here. There's Tales from Dimwood Forest, and there's also this series called Redwall. So I'm going to talk about Redwall right now. Here is the first book in the series. Redwall is one of my favorite fantasy series because it is traditional high fantasy with one exception. Rather than witches and wizards and warriors that are people, these are witches and wizards and warriors that are animals. So the first book in the Redwall series is the story of Matthias, who is sort of a young mouse eager to be a warrior, eager to make his name in the world, and eager to defeat the incoming hordes of Clooney the Scourge, who is an evil rat coming to invade the kingdom and the realm that they exist in. So if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings or of series like Ranger's Apprentice, Redwall is a great series to discover. And as with other series, you get the pleasure of many books to follow the first one. So I would recommend Redwall to you. And you can see I saved this series tag so I can see all of them later on. Another book that I'd love to recommend that involves mice as main characters is further down in this list, and that is Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH. This is an older book. You can see it was published in 1986. Our copy was published in 1986, and it was actually originated in 1971. There's actually an animated movie that was made of this that you might be familiar with called The Secret of NIMH. But this is another great adventure story that kind of flies under the radar because it's an older book. Mrs. Frisby is a mouse that lives in the field, and the field is about to be plowed. Her son, Timothy, is very sick. They live inside a little cinder block. They've made a nest in there, and Timothy is too sick to move. She fears the plows coming the next day, and in order to save her son, Mrs. Frisby needs to swallow her fear and go see the rats. The rats live under the rose bush and are not normal farmhouse rats. Instead, they are actually rats that have escaped from the labs of the National Institute of Mental Health, where they were subjects of an experiment that made them super intelligent. So under the rosebush, they have electricity that they have tapped into from the farmhouse. They have a well-built and advanced society, and Mrs. Frisby has to go throw herself on their mercy to hopefully save her son. So this tells not only the story of whether or not Timothy can be saved, but also the story of the experience of lab rats from the perspective of the rats in question. It's a really interesting story and an exciting adventure at the same time. And so now that we have talked about two books with mice as the main characters, I am going to now do a smart search for rats. Rats as the super smart characters in Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH made me think of one last book. And this is going to be another one where when I search for rats, I get books that are also about pet rats and rats in the wild. So I am going to, again, limit this by genre so that I may see only books where rats are characters and I'm not So this shows me where rats are characters. And I am going to introduce you guys to a series by the author of The Hunger Games, Suzanne Collins, before she became super famous with the Hunger Games series, was also the author of a series that begins with Gregor the Overlander. This is a story that starts where Gregor and his little sister Boots are they're in the laundry room of their apartment building. They're working on their, doing the laundry. And Boots disappears into an air grate, basically behind a laundry machine, slides down a chute, and Gregor is horrified, kind of launches himself after her, and falls a great, great distance into a world that exists under the city that is above ground. These people have been underground for centuries. They are in a world where there are huge bats that are the allies of the humans. There are rats that are the enemies of the humans. There are cockroaches and mice that sort of stay out of things. In fact, the cockroaches are one of the first animals to meet Gregor and his sister Boots when they arrive in the Underland. And because Boots has a dirty diaper when she arrives, they smell her and they begin to worship her as a goddess. And so the cockroaches are the staunch defenders of Boots, but only Boots through the stories of this. As with many other fantasy novels, there is a prophecy involved that seems to indicate that not only was Gregor's arrival expected, but he is a savior that is going to end the wars that have been happening between the humans and the rats for time untold. It is a really exciting series. The characters of the animals are essential and really well drawn. And if you are at all a fan of Suzanne Collins' writing, Gregor the Overlander is certainly a series not to miss. So as you know, if any of these series interest you, simply click on the hand, log in. Your username and password are now the same as your Google credentials, so your school email and the password you use for that. And we will place it on hold for you to pick up. Hope you heard something that interests you, and happy reading.